Welcome back to Rants, everybody. So today we're going to be looking at a few bits of an article called Privilege by Korver. So let's get started. Two concepts that I've been thinking about a lot lately are guilt and responsibility. When it comes to racism in America, I think guilt and responsibility tend to be seen as more or less the same thing. But I'm beginning to understand now that there's a real difference. As white people, are we guilty of our sins of our forefathers? No, I don't think so. But are we responsible for them? Yes, I believe we are. And I guess I come to realize that when we talk about solutions to systematic racism, police reform, workplace diversity, affirmative action, better access to healthcare, and even reparations, it's not about guilt. It's not about pointing fingers or passing blame. Okay, let's break this down line by line. Two concepts that I've been thinking about a lot lately are guilt and responsibility. What guilt and responsibility do you have? Did you do something wrong? No? Then you shouldn't be feeling guilt and responsibility. You didn't do anything. It was that guy that said something at the Utah Jazz game that was racially charged. And those people did what they did back then. They're no longer around. So why are you feeling guilt and responsibility for something you didn't even do at all? I don't get that. When it comes to racism in America, I think that guilt and responsibility tends to seem more or less the same thing. But I'm beginning to understand now there's a real difference. How are you personally guilty or responsible for racism in America? That makes no sense. You were not personally responsible for that. You didn't do anything, so how are you guilty or responsible? That makes no sense whatsoever. As white people, are we guilty of the sins of our forefathers? No, I don't think so. Correct. You're not responsible for the sins of your forefathers at all. You are not. That is correct. But are we responsible for them? Yes, I believe we are. No, you are not. You're not responsible for what those people did back then. They know what they did back then. They're no longer around. So you are not responsible for what they did back then. You weren't born in that time. So you didn't do anything wrong. I hate when people say, oh, but I'm responsible for what happened back then because I look just like them. No, you were not. Stop. Stop. Please. You are not responsible for whatever happened back in the past. That was terrible. Please, just stop feeling guilty and responsibility for something that you had nothing to do with or you were never a part of. And I guess I have come to realize that when we talk about solutions to systematic racism, police reform, workplace diversity, affirmative action, better access to healthcare, even reparations, it's not about guilt, not about pointing fingers or passing blame. You just pass blame on people that had nothing to do with what happened back then or what the guy did at a Jazz game. So you literally just contradicted yourself. You're passing blame right now. Like, oh my gosh, how can you not see the hypocrisy in this? It's so silly. This whole thing is like, I'm guilty and responsible for whatever my ancestors did. Even though I had nothing to do with it, I was not born there. I was not in that time period. I didn't enslave anyone. I didn't hurt anyone. I didn't do nothing racial. But I still feel guilt and responsibility. That makes no sense to me. It just boggles my mind that people feel that way. It's so dumb and so silly. Stop feeling personally guilty and responsible for something that was not your fault. Don't let people trap you into that. There's an elephant in the room that I've been thinking about over these last few weeks. It's the fact that demographically, if we're being honest, I have more in common with the fans in the crowd at your average NBA game than I have with the players on the court. And after the events in Salt Lake City last month, as we've been discussing them since, I really started to realize the role in those demographics play in my privilege. It's like maybe Thibault's friend or Ipike's teammate or Russ's colleague. I may work with those guys, but I absolutely stand with them. But I look like the other guy. There's an elephant in the room that I've been thinking about a lot over these last few weeks. It's the fact that demographically, if we're being honest, I have more in common with the fans in the crowd at your average NBA game than I have with the players on the court. What? What are you talking about? You're an NBA player. They're the fans. You talking about your race? That's probably the only thing you have in common with them. Other than that, you have nothing else in common with them. You don't share their beliefs. You don't share their views. You don't share nothing other than skin color. So what are you on about? And after the events in Salt Lake City last month, and as we've been discussing them since, I've started to recognize the role those demographics play in my privilege. It's like, I may be Thibault's friend, or a Peke's teammate, or a Russ's colleague. I may work with those guys, and I absolutely 100% stand with them, but I look like the other guy. Yeah, and I look like Al Sharpton and Spike Lee. Doesn't mean I share their viewpoints or their politics or anything like that. No. Just because you look like somebody doesn't mean you automatically share their views and their politics and stuff like that. Y'all are different people. How do you not know this, man? Come on, bro. And whether I like it or not, I'm beginning to understand how that means something. What I'm realizing is no matter how passionate I commit to being an ally, and no matter how my unwavering support is for NBA and WNBA players of color, I'm still in this conversation from the privileged perspective of opting into it. Which of course means that on the flip side, I could just as easily opt out of it. Every day I'm given that choice, I'm granted that privilege, based on the color of my skin. In other words, I can say everything right in the world. I can voice my solidarity with Russ after what happened in Utah. I can evolve my position on what happened to Thibault in New York. I can be that weird dude and get out bragging about how he'd have voted for Obama a third term. I can condemn every racist secular I've ever known. But I can also fade into the crowd and my face can blend in with the faceless hackers anytime I want. And whether I like it or not, I'm beginning to understand how that means something. Okay? What I'm realizing is no matter how passionately I commit to being an ally, no matter how my unwavering support is for NBA and WNBA players of color. So in this conversation from the privileged perspective of opting into it. Which of course means on the flip side I could easily just opt out of it. Every day I'm given that choice and granted privilege based on the color of my skin. So what you're saying is no matter how much I want to help these people, no matter how much I want to suck up to these people, they're not going to see me as an ally. They're only going to see me as a person that is from a privileged perspective because of my skin color. No, your skin color didn't get you there. Hard work and talent got you there. You just don't automatically get into the NBA because of your skin color. No, that amounts to jack. Your hard work, your skill, your talent, and the time you take to commit to your craft is what got you to that next level. It's not your skin color that did it. That's a load of crap, to be honest. In other words, I can say everything right in the world. I can voice my solidarity with Russ after what happened in Utah. I can evolve my position on what happened to Thibault in New York. I can be that weird dude and get out bragging about how he'd have voted for Obama a third term. I can condemn every racist heckler I've ever known. But I can also fade into the crowd and my face can blend in with the faces of those hecklers anytime I want. So you're saying because you look like the hecklers, what you're doing, and when you're condemning these hecklers, it means nothing because you look like the hecklers. How does that make any sense? The hecklers are not you. Yes, call out these hecklers. Of course, that's fine. Call out the hecklers all you want, because hecklers are idiots. They shouldn't be doing that in the first place. Just because you look like the hecklers doesn't mean you can blend into them anytime you want. That makes no sense. That is a load of woke garbage. Just some woke garbage, man. You and the hecklers have different mindsets and different views and stuff like that. You were not the hecklers and the hecklers are not you, okay? Thanks for reading. Time for me to shut up and listen. So that's all I can stand on that article. If you want to see the full thing, it'll be in the description below. If you want to see my last electric rants, you can click that eye right there. It'll take you right to it. Have a great day, guys, and remember to stay awesome.